this number.
Warning, the following show contains conservative posturing, radical Christian ideas, and may offend pagans, Wiccans, Islamic fundamentalists, and other unenlightened individuals. Callers and guests may be subjected to brash and offensive comments by the hosts and any other type of bullying tactics available. But that's okay. We know why you're here.
This concludes this test of the emergency broadcast system.
Hello and welcome to World of the Unexplained. Tonight is November the 9th, 2009. This is your host, Jay Scott.
This is Trent Lackey. Did you like that, Scott?
I did. I was wondering if you were there.
It was Trent Lackey.
I can see you, but
yeah, but sometimes I'm not here. For example, happy birthday, Sesame Street.
Happy birthday, Sesame Street.
Happy birthday, fall of the Berlin Wall.
Happy birthday, fall of the Berlin Wall.
It happened today. Actually, technically, it was the edict that allowed East Germans to move to West Germany. The wall fell over a period of weeks and whatnot, but this was the moment when they they crossed over. Pretty much the end of the geopolitical world as we knew it on that day.
Kind of scary.
Yeah. Who was there today? Gorbachev.
Bono.
Have you ever heard that story about Bono in East Germany?
He was sleeping in some guy's house.
Yeah, but I mean, he had a pretty rough night, and he passed out basically.
Yeah,
I believe that's how the story went, and so he was just kind of in his skivvies, and he kind of hung over. The next morning, somebody was knocking on the door.
Get out of my house.
Yeah, at the time in East Germany, it was like a hotel or a hostel or whatever.
Somebody took it over.
Yeah, and it was the original occupants of the house.
Yeah,
it's like, what are you doing in our house? And and he looked very sheepish because he didn't really know how to answer that question.
I paid money to stay in your house to someone that wasn't you.
This is very strange. And then there was another moment when the whole band decided to see there was some kind of a parade. And they thought to themselves, oh, well, that's cool. It's a parade. So they all got in the parade. And they're walking around. They're looking around. And they're going, wait a minute. These people don't really look happy at all for
being in a parade.
Yeah. What's wrong with these people? And so they were looking around. And they said, oh, hey, look at that. And there are these, like, red flags. And communist logo for the GDR, and apparently they're in a parade. They're in some kind of a march protesting the edict of the reunification of East Germany with West Germany. So apparently, for a little while in the newspapers, it was like, "You too, communist," and all this stink. And
no, they were just stupid.
They just really had no idea what they were doing. But
oops,
very significant moment in world history. And if I remember correctly, further on back, it was Kristallnacht, which is a much more infamous night, in Hitler's Germany.
I don't know what that is.
It was November 9th. It's basically when they just kind of, those fire bombings and people, the Nazi party basically started dropping Jewish families and escorting them to ghettos and things like that.
Oh, I didn't know that. I didn't know that.
It was
I
called
didn't know that what was called.
Yeah, Kristallnacht.
Okay. Well, I've learned something.
So anyway, basically, momentous day. 2 really good things happened today, and 1 really horrible thing happened today in the world of history. I mean, if you like Sesame Street. Otherwise, it's just 1 good thing, 1 sort of horrible thing, and 1 thing that just...
I don't know. I'm gonna just have to check that clip out to see if it's poking fun at conservatives and teaching our children bad.
Oh my
things.
gosh, it's just a kid show, man.
Yeah, they're just kids. Let's indoctrinate them now with hatred for the right. Yeah.
Let's indoctrinate them with hatred for all cable news networks. How about that? And ultra conservative. Oh wait a minute, stop talking.
I'm just saying. Yeah. Horrible.
Yeah. I don't know. I haven't watched it, so I don't really know. Anyway.
Well, anyway,
sorry.
We've got our guest tonight. Not yet. We don't have our guest tonight. Okay, I thought we did. He's looking at me, going, "Yeah." I'm like, "Yeah." We're making all the signals, and yeah, go ahead and call him. Yeah, keep that a secret.
We really need like a series of code signs.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Right.
Like for example, this one.
Yeah, that would probably work. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, I thought he was giving me the signal that we were waiting
Right.
on the line.
We obviously don't know the Drow sign language.
Yes. Well, anyway. Point is,
what was that?
I don't know. The point is, tonight we're going to talk about the Billy Meier happenings, the Billy Meier story DVD. We're going to be speaking with Billy Meier's Authorized American Representative, Michael Horn. Again, we've had him on before, a long time ago. Well, I don't know it's been how long ago, but
It was quite a while since we talked to Michael Horn.
Well, we'll have him on, and we'll talk about all this stuff we saw on the video, and some it's different, and we'll go through that. And me and Trent actually sat down together and watched this.
It's been a long time.
It's been a long time since we've done that. Yeah. We held hands, ate popcorn. No, I'm kidding.
Scott has a different recollection of that moment than I do.
No, but it was cool. Movie night. Me and Trent, we just chilled out and watched this film, and it was pretty neat. So now, do I have confirmation he's with us? Okay, great. So without further ado, Michael Horn is with us tonight. How you doing tonight, Michael?
I'm fine. How are you?
I'm good. We saw the movie.
Oh, okay.
We liked it. We enjoyed it. It was very informational. It was done really well.
I'm glad you sound surprised, but it's okay.
No. I mean, I was just the quality of it is just fantastic. I mean, we see a lot of stuff out there. That's why I was just really, really impressed with it.
And thank you. Yeah, I worked with a good partner, a director, co-producer, who Jack Gerlach, and a young German guy, and he was very interested in this, and we both wanted to do a really good job.
Sure, and the pictures were the greatest part of the whole thing, because you hear about it and you see them online, but to see them on your television in such vibrant colors, and to see all the elements around it, it's really just made with the videos too. I mean, it really just kind of put the whole story. I mean, it's one thing to read about it in the book, and it's another thing to actually be able to see it.
Sure. I agree. It is, Billy Meier has taken the clearest, best, most abundant physical evidence, in terms of photos, films, video, sound recordings, metal samples, of any, claimed UFO case in the world ever.
Yeah.
You just got to see it.
No, I was really impressed with it.
It's quite good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when did you actually, over what period of time did you film this with Billy and make your trip over there?
Well, actually, we filmed most of the interviews that had to do with Billy and the Swiss people within about a 1-week period in Switzerland. Then we had a bit of a road trip. We cover our trip to Laughlin to the International UFO Congress. And that was a separate several-day event. And then we brought in the expert consultant to the United States Army Special Forces to review Billy Meier and the other main contacts he witnessed, Po Bo Chang, and to examine them to see if they were truthful in their what they were saying. And what we did, I don't know if it came across, on first watching the film, but when we had the expert watching Billy Meier, even though Billy was speaking in German, we had the sound turned off for the first pass, just so he could get a body language read on whether this man was speaking the truth about whatever he was saying. Then when we finally brought the sound up, I had thought that Michael Arendt, the NLP consultant, might have understood some German. He did, but he didn't understand Billy's dialect, so he didn't know anything about Meier, and we didn't tell him at any point during the filming what the guy was talking about. We just asked him to evaluate him for honesty.
Huh. Well, obviously it came across that he was telling the truth.
Yes, he's a truthful man, I can tell you that.
I don't think I'm giving anything away that would shock our listeners about the film, but yeah, it was just amazing though to see the videos and to see the pictures and the whole life story and everything, and actually see the man and hear him speak in his own words. It was just definitely fascinating. What did you think, Trent?
I thought it was excellent. I really did. I thought the sincerity that he came across with when he was being interviewed, and just how calmly and how nonchalantly he talked about these things, which to a lot of people would be really just
disturbed.
Yeah, I mean he gave it. He talked about it with the same kind of cadence that other people may give going to the store and buying some dog food or something. I mean, and I mean that just the sincerity and just the matter of factness. It was quite nice.
Yeah, you're right, guys. It's his truth. Remember, he's been having these experiences with these people since he was 5 years old. And this is not only, there are other witnesses, as we see in the film. There are other people who've even photographed the ships. But Meier has had these experiences for, something in the neighborhood of 67 years, and they continue to this day with these people.
Now, what the Meier talks about a lot of things and a lot of the predictions and a lot of the prophecies. Let's talk about that a little bit.
Sure. What would you like to address?
I don't know anything that hasn't happened yet. I guess stuff that's coming. I guess.
Yeah. Well, there are specific things that they've mentioned that are occurring that they won't give dates for.
Okay.
And what I should mention is that people can, if they go to my website, which is www. Excuse me. Pardon me, a little hoarse. Theyfly.com. THEYFLY. Theyfly.com. We have posted all of the prophecies and predictions that have been translated into English for free on the website. And some were published as early as 1951, and then 58, 64, 87, 89, and it goes on and on. But you mentioned, well, what are the specific ones that haven't happened yet? Well, there's two that come to mind right away, and one of which Meier was first told about in 1975, and he was told about it again 30 years later in 2005, and that is that the La Palma, the volcano in the islands, in the Canary Islands, I think it's called Cumbre or La Palma volcano, that volcano is going to erupt at some point. They won't tell us when, but they've already seen it, if you will. When that happens, it's going to generate an enormous tsunami. At first, it will just spread up the west coast where, we have the Portugal, Spain, and France on the coastal regions, and it'll do some damage, but that's not going to be the real shot. It's going to race across the Atlantic Ocean, and depending on how fiercely and voluminously the mass of that volcano is dumped into the sea, the waves can, by the time they are coming in across the entire eastern seaboard of the U.S., they will be anywhere from 1,500 to 2,000 meters high.
That's big.
That's a mile-high wave. It's unimaginable.
How far inland would that reach?
Up to 20 kilometers, over 12, 15 miles.
Wow.
And what they are saying is this event will occur. They won't tell us when, but they've said it is the responsibility of the United States government and its scientists to prepare and make evacuation routes and warning systems that enable people to get out of the way as soon as there's any news, should it, at any point that this happens, that there's that eruption or that it's imminent.
Sure.
Otherwise, up to 20 million people living in this country could lose their lives from that one event. Now, frankly, to me, I can't imagine it. I'll just tell you. However, since Meier was first told that 34 years ago, scientists have verified that volcano is indeed at some point going to erupt, and it's going to send one whopper of a tsunami across the sea, across the Atlantic. Wow. So that is something that he preempted them on by quite a bit. He also published information about an earthquake that will hit 9.0. It will run for up to 5 minutes, and it will generate a tsunami, and then more earthquake, more tsunami, and this will be off the north, the greater Northwest, up off of the Portland and Seattle area. Scientists have also now come up with an estimate that's almost exactly the same as what Meier was told. Ooh. So those kinds of things are, the things that they kind of, for many people, and myself included, they go beyond my ability to really grasp that that's possible. And I'm not saying that it isn't, because Meier's track record is, wherever we can check it out, it's 100% virtually. There are many, many, many other things, and a lot of them are, very disturbing, but some of the ones that are most disturbing are prophecies. And that means that, to some degree, greater or lesser, they may still be changeable. They can still be altered. Predictions are written in stone. These are events that will occur without a shadow of a doubt. On predictions, and there are things that they know that they will not tell us about when it pertains to a specific assassination, for instance. And Meier has been warned in the past about many, and it is documented, and they just kept the stuff sequestered until after some of those events happened. And the answer to the question, well, why, if a world leader or somebody important was going to be assassinated, wouldn't they warn? When it's a prediction, it means that event is going to take place and must take place based on the laws of cause and effect. It's not particularly mystical. It's just plain old physics, things that have been set in motion that fulfill themselves. When people find out about an event, and it can even be a specific earthquake, volcanic eruption, anything else, those are more dramatic and extreme examples, but anything that pertains to an assassination, an event involving people directly or in their actions, human beings understandably would try to prevent that.
Sure.
But they wouldn't be able to without causing even far more compounded damage, because they would be upsetting a natural law that's fulfilling itself, and the collateral damage from that would be even greater than the allowing of the event to happen. We have to understand that in this case, Meier, in the 50s, was forewarned about the assassination of JFK, Martin Luther King, and RFK. He was forewarned about, he actually, according to him and according to investigators in the case, he actually witnessed the poisoning of one of the popes back in the 70s. He knew who the next pope would be and how long the pope would be, in office before he met the same fate, and he told it to the investigators, who kind of forgot about it until they heard the radio that fateful day when it all then happened, and they almost drove off the road because, he had told them. And then, of course, Meier took photographs of a devastating earthquake that will occur in San Francisco in the future that basically levels the entire city. And this is, another weird thing that people go, well, how's that possible? He showed those photos, 11 of them, to the 3 top investigators in the case, and they tried to figure out when that could possibly be, and the only thing they could latch in on was when they looked at the cars in the streets. They noticed that the cars did not look anything like the cars in 1978 when they were looking at the photos. And they said what was unusual about these cars is they were basically a bit rounder in shape. They didn't have tail fins and all that stuff. The windshields were sweeping up into the roof line a lot more, much bigger windshields, and they didn't have outside protuberances for rear view mirrors. Now, when I read that, I thought, maybe these guys are kidding. What do you mean, no rear view mirrors? And then I started to see, first of all, that cars have become, in many cases, a lot more frontal glass, more rounded shape, glass extending into the roof lines. And even as of about a year or two ago, people were sending me things from the websites on the internet showing concept cars that don't have rear view mirrors and that are using cameras inside. This was published by the investigators back in 78, back in 80. So there's so much here that when anybody just goes about with an open mind, says, okay, let's check this guy out. Maybe he's a big hoaxer. Let's find out. And you start doing some searching like I did. You go, wait a minute. This is not a joke.
Now, have you, Michael, being his American contact, have you had the opportunity since the last time we spoke to see any of these saucers?
No, I've had 4 sightings of UFOs in my own life. All of them have been in the U.S. 2 of them were very interesting because they occurred about a month and a half apart in exactly the same place over my head, way up high in the sky. And I've never really even asked Billy. I just assumed that they were probably military craft. But it did always pique my interest. This was about 3 years ago, I guess. I was always wondering why right above my head in the exact same spot when I was lying on the ground just kind of daydreaming in a backyard, a month and a half apart, do I get the same disc way up in the sky, suddenly stopping and doing circles and right angles and then zipping off? And I went, well, that's interesting, but it's probably the military. I'm in L.A. They're not that far away. And I've had 2 separate sightings in Sedona, Arizona, about 11 years apart, so 9 years apart, something like that. But the UFO part actually for me is the least important part of it because you really, really, really can't do anything with it. The real question is, if there really are intelligently controlled non-terrestrial, extraterrestrial UFOs, what's the reason behind their appearance? What's the reason behind the sightings? What's the reason behind Meier's contacts? Because there's nobody else on the planet that can verify that they're in contact with extraterrestrials, despite the huge numbers of people that want to make those claims.
That's a very good point. I was just looking at your website actually, and looking at some of the documented photos down here at the bottom, and they're very well done. You know, the picture quality is perfect, and not only that, the dates totally predate any kind of tampering with computers. Yeah. I also noticed, well,
no Photoshop there.
Yeah, no Photoshop, and basically the uniformity of the craft. You know, and I realized that the Plejarians were his contacts, and you know, and I sort of started musing about the notion of alien spacecraft in general, and you know how in our society and the human race, when we build ships, there's a Boeing 747 and there's a Cessna. You know, they're battleships and destroyers, and it looks like here in a lot of ways it's almost the reverse. It looks like a one-size-fits-all, or maybe just the same kind of craft that keeps on showing up. And I don't know, it's kind of a philosophical
Well, there were actually about 5 or so, maybe more, variations on the disc shape that showed up for Meier to photograph, and maybe actually more based on the fact that some of the ones that he photographed in '64 came from another race who work with these Plejarian people. But their mothership is a huge, basically rounded kind of an object that has a whole section that's well over 10 miles in diameter, with these long struts leading out to separate globes, you know, above and below it, and it's an unusual-looking thing, but it's round in shape. And then you have the wedding cake ship that has all these globes, you know, positioned all around the craft. So they also, no doubt, have many other sizes and shapes, but they use the disc shape primarily for very specific reasons. Apart from the fact that they still use those kind of craft, they use them because on a cellular memory level, there are a lot of people that will connect, that this will resonate with, even on an un- or subconscious level, based on previous existences and you know, things that happened on this world thousands, tens, and hundreds of thousands of years ago.
Kind of like a genetic memory, as it were.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's an interesting point. It looks like we're kind of rounding up to our first break, though.
Yeah, if you would like to call in, go ahead, Trent. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Okay, you can call in 1-877-722-7382 locally, 336-996-1596. Don't forget our emails, worldoftheunexplained@gmail.com. And our lines are open. And
you're listening to Michael Horn, the authorized U.S. representative for Billy Meier. And tonight we're talking about the Billy Meier Story DVD, which you can purchase on theyfly.com. And you can also check out photos. Are there any video shots up there, Michael?
Are there any what?
Any video clips up there, trailers?
You know, there is one on one of the new articles, and it's very compelling. It basically proves the case is real in about 2 minutes.
Oh, okay. Cool. Well, check out theyfly.com in the interim. But you're listening to World of the Unexplained, and we'll be right back after this.
And we're back. World of the Unexplained. Give us a call. Our lines are open. We're talking with Michael Horn tonight about the new film, The Billy Meier Story. Give us a call. 1-877-722-7382. That's 1-877-SCARE-YOU2. Or locally, 336-996-1596. And be sure, if you're a little bit phone shy, to give us an email at worldoftheunexplained@gmail.com. Michael, those something you just talked about actually was really fascinating, and that was the discussion of Merlin and King Arthur and Excalibur. Please talk about that.
Yes, I've got a little conversation excerpt up on the website. Meier was told some information about Merlin, who they said, yes, this was a real person. He wasn't a wizard the way, you know, the legends have come down in the stories and myths to make him a sorcerer and a magician and all that. He was apparently a very, very accomplished, advanced person who even as a child had been like initiated into, you know, levels of understanding and training with the Druids. And as he got older, when he was just a teenager, as I worked out the dates in there, he was in touch with a woman. I think her name is pronounced something like Caradwana, and it turns out she was actually one of the Pleiaren. And the Pleiaren have been involved in our world in one way, shape, or form or in another over a very long period of time for the purpose of trying to get us to leave behind illogical, irrational thinking. They are not big fans of our religions. They are not big fans of any of our religions at all. But they are very big fans of truth and teaching of life, the teaching of spirit, the teaching of truth. Merlin, as a young man, had been presented with this information because what the Pleiaren are telling us in this contact is that the Druids, the people of whom he was a part, actually had a philosophy of life that was pretty much in harmony with what they called the true and ancient teaching. Now, not in all ways, because they were still, in some ways, a barbaric people. They, did a lot of fighting, and they apparently also had human sacrifices. But Merlin, even as a, late teenage man, young boy turning into man, was an advanced being, and he was given a very valuable teaching by the Pleiaren through this woman. And not only was he given that, but he was given a sword. And that sword was a real physical sword, with the difference that it also could emit light of a certain form that could be used to make it a much more effective killing weapon. This was entrusted to Merlin. Now, Merlin also ended up, being a warrior in his lifetime, too. But Merlin turned the sword over to King Arthur. And I'm not somebody who was ever really steeped in all this information. I was never into Dungeons and Dragons and all this stuff. It was interesting, the knights and all that, but I didn't go deeply into it. So I'm just giving you an overview as I recall it from the article on my site. According to this information, Arthur was actually not at all a particularly noble fellow. He was a student, if you will, of Merlin's in many ways, and the knights were really bloodthirsty. They were just pretty barbaric. And Merlin, for some unknown reason, actually gave Arthur the sword, with which he went out and slew lots and lots of people, which also didn't sit very well with this woman, Caradwana, and she, or Caradwina, whichever it is, and she wanted to get the sword back. And I have questions I've sent into Switzerland to try and find out more details as to why that was so hard, why they couldn't get it back from King Arthur, since, they were more powerful than he, but that hasn't been answered yet. Anyhow, it turns out that ultimately he does get the sword back. And there's other, nefarious things that are, go on in that time. And Merlin was, and these Druids, they were, I guess you'd say, the Celts or Celts, or something that's pronounced, they were very nature-oriented people. They did a lot of meditating in nature. They communed a lot with the elements, and they derived from that. Some of them became very proficient seers, and people who could plunge themselves into visions of the future and what have you. Merlin misrepresented himself a little bit. Even though he had some of those abilities, he co-opted some of the things that he was told by the Pleiaren woman and made them his own, as if they were his prophecy. So he was a mixed bag, apparently, as a fellow. And he retired from the whole fighting thing and everything, I think when he was about 66 years of age. And I think he dies when he's about 93, and that article tells a story. And interestingly enough, I do have a link in that article because we link to the new book by Meier, Spiritual Teaching, called The Goblet of Truth, and there's some more information, some more specifics about Merlin and his relationship to this teaching, and what actually happened to the teaching. It was not well received by King Arthur. They had hoped that they could turn society in a better direction if, through Merlin, King Arthur would be made aware of the spiritual teaching and would promote it. But anything but that, happened, it turned out.
That's pretty interesting. And so what about this this myth, I suppose, tying Merlin in with the construction of Stonehenge? Is that true? Or just sort of...
I haven't seen anything connected to that in the material. It doesn't mean that it's either not there or not true. It wasn't mentioned if it is true. But Stonehenge, they wrote about separately, and I'd have to look at the chronology. We might be able to figure out if it's even possible that Merlin was involved with it based on the years that he was alive and when they could calculate that Stonehenge was constructed. And the reason I say it's interesting is because, according to the Playaran, we're kind of dopey down here. We're very fascinated with Stonehenge for the, the obvious, interesting, astronomical, observatorial kind of structure it may be. But they said you have to understand that there was so much bloody human sacrifice performed at this place that it was energetically very contaminated from the brutality of these people who were pretty barbaric, on top of, having somehow created this observatory. And they didn't go into any details that I've read yet, and it may be in the Meier material, as to how they did that. But they said, it was even put, as I recall, one way, a lot of the people that find themselves so fascinated, and enchanted with this in previous lifetimes may well have been sacrificed on the altars there. So human beings, embrace things often without full knowledge.
That's an interesting point. And also the thing is that I see here on your site about the account, and something that I appreciate is the fact that you have it on the left-hand side, apparently in Swiss, and then the translation is directly to the right. So, I mean, if somebody is proficient in the language, they can sit there and look at it and take it directly from the source if they want to.
Right, it's in German.
German.
Swiss speak German. Their dialect, when they speak it, it has different pronunciations, but I believe that in all cases, except where they've actually coined any of their own words, it's all written out the same way. It's just their pronunciation is different than what's called High German.
Right, that makes sense. And let's see. The other thing I would talk about this, historians very oftentimes say that, yes, the Celts were very barbaric and brutal and committed blood sacrifice and everything like that, but it was in fact the Christians who taught us not to be so bloodthirsty. And it seems like, according to this account, they were just as bad as the Celts. So, well,
in many cases worse. If you think about it historically, the Celts, for the little that I've learned just reading the Meier material, they were defending against the Christian invaders. And, of course, we know about things such as, the Crusades and Inquisitions. You'd have to say, if you want to be honest, that Christianity created tens of millions of brutal deaths without reason over long periods of time. And, if you look at the Meier material, they're very direct. They don't pull any punches. They're not diplomats. And what they're trying to say to us, and they've been trying to say it to us literally for several thousand years, is none of your religions have the complete truth. And as long as you simply accept and believe things, because they're beliefs that are promoted endlessly, you will end up in tremendous pain with enormous wars and loss of life, due largely, not solely, but largely, to religions which will then be polarizing against each other. And they have specifically said for a long time, it will be during this time, especially after the new millennium, that we will see Judaism, Christianity, and Islam in their most fundamental forms, fundamentalist forms, causing enormous death and destruction. And that will also, of course, be contributed to by states that, are, you might say, atheistic or, secular, but it cannot be denied that ever since there's been religion in the world, there's been an enormous amount of, murder, bloodshed, and suffering. And, people can do with that what they want. So the Playaran point of view is this, that we must leave behind the age of beliefs for the age of knowledge. We don't have to believe in gravity unless we're going to think we can fly off a building. And we don't have to believe in walls and floors in our apartments because we can experience that as well in a very direct way. We need to align ourselves with things that we can determine the truth of. Once we know something is true, we don't need to believe it because there's nothing that opposes it being true. There is no way of proving the truth of any religion because, and this is solely rests on, me, you can yell at, every single religion rests on one premise, and the premise itself is illogical, it's childish, and it's inadmissible in a court of law or even in a schoolroom. And here it is. What's in this book is true because this book says it's true.
I suppose you could take that argument. There was one more question I was going to say about the Merlin King Arthur.
Sure.
What happened to the light beam? Where's the weapon?
They did get it back. Merlin was able to get it back from Arthur at some point. And then it was returned to the Pleiaren. It was then destroyed, and I believe the woman herself left and went back to her home world, not too enchanted any longer with Merlin, with whom she apparently was quite enchanted. It seems like they had some kind of relationship going on.
Oh, well.
Yeah.
So, I mean, taking that line of logic, it would make sense that Pleiarans would maybe be enchanted with, or maybe not, with other famous historical figures. Let's say, I'm just going to throw a few out there, Confucius, or the Enlightenment writers, or maybe Thomas Jefferson, people like that.
No, I'll tell you who they had their contacts with. Enoch, Elijah, Isaiah, Jeremiah, Emmanuel, Muhammad, and Meier.
Okay.
And the reason for that, they state, and again, there's nothing to believe here. If somebody says, I don't believe that, I don't have an argument with them. This is information, and a lot of information in the case, we're not in a position right now of knowing firmly whether it's true or not. So I just say this is the information. So the point being that these 7 prophets, as they describe them, and most people don't know who Emmanuel was, they say, well, here's some shocking news.
I thought he was Obama.
I'm sorry?
I thought he was Obama.
No.
Sorry, I had to go there. Go ahead.
Although I wouldn't write Obama off on all levels. Whatever people thinking about him, he's not a prophet. But there may be some elements of Obama that are not quite as unpleasant to many people as they appear, and some that are. He's a human being and he's a politician, so it's a rough combination. But in our history here of the prophets, Enoch, Elijah, Isaiah, Jeremiah, I mentioned Emmanuel. Emmanuel is the man, according to the Pleiaren, upon whom the life of Jesus was based, meaning that they state firmly and unequivocally that no such man ever existed who was called in his lifetime Jesus or Jesus Christ. The man's name was Emmanuel. He was foretold in Isaiah 7:14, I think. He was once mentioned in Matthew when Matthew's talking about the birth of Jesus. He lets slip one sentence naming him as Emmanuel. And when you read the Talmud, Emmanuel, what are said to be the original teachings as transcribed by Judas, who they also say was not the betrayer, but a man of a similar name. All this is in and you saw this in the film and everything too. Most people don't know. We put all this in the film. This is why there have been 21 attempts on Meier's life. It's not just UFOs. He has come forward with the Talmud Emmanuel and presented information that is so heretical, it really does threaten the foundation of all the religions.
Well, here's my issue with that. If the Pleiarans feel that religions are so skewed and basically leading us down an incorrect path, why don't they just sit in there and then subvert them from the inside? Why don't they do that?
Why don't they support the religions?
Subvert them, and sort of guide them to where they need to be going.
Well, here's the thing. What is said in this case is that we, the humans of Earth, have free will. And for someone from the outside, and we might want to just even reflect on this when we think about all the wars we get in, when somebody goes and interferes with the free will of others to subvert and to manipulate them in a given direction, then we commit a crime, or they would be committing a crime, in a sense, against us. We would be just as misled, because then there would be force, in effect, used against the religions and their hierarchies, and these are human beings, and we all, let me put it this way, Meier and the Pleiaren are extremely harsh about religions, their hierarchies, but they also respect that this is all about human beings, and that it is going to take a very, very long time for us to sort out the truth. They don't want to do any harm to people, even the people they are most harshly critical of. They don't intend harm for them, unlike the way we operate here. They would love it if more and more human beings questioned these things and thought them through and took full responsibility for their own lives. Because this isn't about following a Swiss farmer or a prophet, extraterrestrials. There's no following that goes on here. There's no beliefs, there's no rituals, there's no superstitions, none of that. There's a spiritual teaching that is at the core, demanding full and complete self-responsibility on the part of every human being, that they have to figure all this stuff out themselves, and that information and teaching is presented. But just like in any good school, it's up to the student to work through it and to find out, well, is this true? Is it not true? What do I think of it? And this is our job. We've gone, according to them, in a very, very awful direction that will take us literally still some hundreds of years to straighten out. But it is ours to do. They can only insert in an oblique manner without directly interfering with us their teaching. Once again, it's the same teaching that each of the prophets got that was changed into religions. They can only bring it to this man, an obscure kind of Swiss farmer with one arm, let him publish it, get it out there, and let people find it and take responsibility. If we come to the conclusion that it's all a big hoax and never mind, then that's, we make those decisions free and clear. And if we discover that, well, this appears to be the truth, then we own it too. And nobody can take it from us any more than they can force it on us.
That's a good point.
Imagine if all religions simply said, here's our teaching. There's no punishment for not believing it. You're not going to hell if you're not part of our group. You're not going to be dipped in molten lava. You're not going to be in purgatory. There's no devil. There's no sins that you were committed before you were born, that somebody died for before you were born. There's no eternal damnation for you. There's none of this. It's simply the way you learn how life works, because your own judgment on yourself is what comes about in life. You don't escape, ultimately, your own conscience and your own judgment. And, that's a whole conversation. People can argue with that. Well, what about this murder or that one and all that? There are certainly things to discuss here. But they are saying there must never be coercion. There must never be threats. You must never indoctrinate children at early ages into belief systems that they can't rationally work their way through, because then as they grow up, they won't be able to rationally work their way through. They will have this put into their heads, and they will be in possession of it and possessed by it. So it doesn't matter what religion we're talking about.
Well,
go ahead, I'm sorry.
I was going to bring up a point. The one religion that I think, I don't know what Meier says about it, but what about the Buddhists? I mean, first of all,
the one religion that they say is relatively, of all of them, the cleanest, because it isn't. Pure Buddhism is not deity based.
No.
Now it has its limits in terms of what the depth of the teachings may be in there, but there's nothing wrong with the teaching of harmlessness and caring for others and compassion. This beautiful stuff. There are elements of Buddhism that have gone off, calling themselves Buddhism, that don't really reflect true Buddhist teachings of that. They bring in all these ghosts and angry ghosts and deities and demons, and like Tibetan Buddhism. The Tibetans have a rough time of it, but it has to be known that Lamism, one of the main religions of Tibet, was a brutal, terrible, murderous thing. Discriminated against and abused women and children, and even some of the supporters of Hitler were, members of an occult black arts Tibetan society. So pure Buddhism is a lovely thing. I mean, if you had to have a religion, you couldn't do too badly with Buddhism. We certainly wouldn't be running around killing each other all over the place.
Yeah, that's true. I would continue it, but we're about a minute near our break, so we might as well go ahead and take it. You're listening to World of the Unexplained. Tonight we have Michael Horn. Give us a call, guys. Send us some emails. What are you doing watching football? I don't even watch football, but don't. Come over here and listen to Michael Horn, and we're going to talk more about the actual film, the Billy Meier story, when we come back here at World of the Unexplained.
Well, Meier did have an amazing life, even during contact time. And even when he wasn't being contacted, when they kind of said, okay, you're going to be on your own for a while, we'll check in with you in a year or two or whatever it was, Meier did end up meeting a lot of the people who either were or would become players on the world stage. Indira Gandhi, as a child, he'd met Mahatma Gandhi. There was Tito. There was King Farouk. There was King Hussein of Jordan. There was Franco of Spain. And there was, indeed, the ever-popular Saddam Hussein, who he met when they were both relatively young, in their 20s. And he said even at that time the guy was a thug, and he was bent on getting as much power as he could. So Meier, in some of those years in the late 50s and early 60s, was known as the Phantom. And that was in the Middle East when he was hired by police departments in West Pakistan, in Turkey, and in India, too, to bring in serial killers and mass murderers, people who were very, very rough, murderous people. And Meier never went out to kill anybody. He didn't have to do that. He would apprehend these people, and he would bring them in for the authorities to, take care of and try. And he did tell me personally, because I was curious about it, he did pack a .44 Magnum and some other weapons, and he was, a crack shot with a pistol. There's stories about that, too. But he said to me, no, I never killed anybody. He said, I only shot people if they drew their weapons on me, and even then I would just wound them so they'd be incapacitated, and then the authorities would take them in. So he's a guy who had, and still does, he had nerves of steel, and just an amazing, amazing person. And when you've got, in your lifetime, you've accumulated 21 attempts in your life, usually the first one sends a message that says, we suggest a career change. And Meier never took that message to heart. He just kept on keeping on.
Well, now, in the movie, it talks about the tragic loss of his arm, and what lesson that may have been for him as far as patience and things like that.
Oh yeah, well that's it's an enormous challenge. When we start looking at the photos and the films, and we realize that skeptics run around saying, "Oh, it's a hoax," and these are models and things. None of these people, of course, ever went to Switzerland and walked around, especially in the wintertime, where Meier used to go as a one-armed man, either on foot or on his moped, and into the mountains and rugged hillsides and photographing and filming these craft. And they have no idea of just how daunting that would be for a person with two hands. There have never been any accomplices, connected to this where you had somebody making models or anything. And as you even pointed out in the beginning of the show when you spoke about, how amazing the objects look, these are amazing-looking objects. When you really examine them, in some cases there's a number of different types of metals that can be perceived in the construction. They are very interestingly formed, with very, very, sophisticated contouring. Even though they're kind of funny-looking in some ways, these are not easy things to make, to quote-unquote make a model of. Even the special effects experts at MGM who made models for testing made only the most simple-looking of models. And I posted this other article on the website, I think I told you up there about, something like Final Proof, Meier's photos are real. We took one of the really famous photos called the Sunlight UFO photo. People will be able to see it when they go to the website. And we show, this picture with a UFO hovering right next to a tree that's got no leaves on it, number one. Right away, you got a problem hoaxing anything. If someone says it's a model tree, show me some model trees that have no leaves on them. And not just one model tree. If you look at it, there's like 3 or 4 other parts of other trees visible in the photograph. And here is this wonderful-looking UFO with the sun glinting off of it right next to the tree. Well, skeptics, reason doesn't mean anything to skeptics. They just want to say it's a hoax and it's a model. So I finally put up a film clip on my site that shows Meier later on walking with a film director from Japan and walking right up to that tree, the main tree. Now, at this time, that tree and the other ones all have leaves on them. But here is Meier walking right up to this tree. You see it's like a 40-foot tree, at least, something like that. There's no question that a little model, 1 foot, 2 foot, 5 foot, you couldn't hang it. You couldn't suspend it next to that tree with no leaves on it to save your life. And plus, that photograph is only one of 34 photos. 34 photos that Meier took of that same object in different positions coming in to get close to the tree. And they took a film of that. We're going to be putting that up at some point. And the film is amazing, too, because in broad daylight, you see these flashes of light coming off of two parts of the object. Impossible with a model. And the light, unlike a regular light, like if you and I shine a light, it spreads out. This is what's called a coherent beam of light that simply comes out in a straight line. It doesn't diffuse at all. Talking 1976, a Swiss farmer putting up this kind of, evidence.
With one arm?
One arm.
Yeah.
It's amazing stuff.
It really is. The photos are just fantastic. And anyone that wants to see these, once again, you can go to www.theyfly.com. That's www.theyfly.com and see the website, see some of the stuff that's up here. It's just a plethora of things about Billy Meier, about the things that he's put up there. It's amazing. A lot of stuff.
Sure is. I was going to say that another thing in the film that I thought was kind of interesting is this organization FIGU, F-I-G-U.
Yes.
Talk about that a little bit.
Well, that's a group of people who, on a volunteer basis, have formed around Meier starting, I don't know, maybe 30 years ago or slightly even before, whose purpose is to help him disseminate the writing, the teaching, the spiritual teaching, and the information in the case. The UFO part of it, is part of it, but they're not all that excited about it. And any number of them have seen the ships. 5 or 6 other people, including a skeptic in the neighborhood, has photographed the ships. So the UFOs to them are not the big deal, if you will. But their purpose is very, very much to help Meier, to get the material out into the world. And these are people from all walks of life. You've got people who are waiters and farmers, to school principals, to industrialists, all sorts of folks. And they create their own little, community, their own little society. They make their own rules. Meier does not get to rule over it. He has one vote, one voice in this whole thing. However, he's also the only guy that really has contact with the ETs. So that is his unique contribution. And they are just, real hardworking people who have all of the problems that everybody else has, maybe a few more because they're involved with this. And they have their struggles in cooperating with each other and personality challenges and, everything you can imagine. But it's a voluntary, group. They don't go out to enlist people. They don't proselytize. They don't knock on doors. They don't recruit. They're not a cult. They're not trying to get anybody to, come and join their ranks. They're very, particular about who they associate with because they know that it's going to be very rough if they're going to have other people join them. And it does happen from time to time, but it's not a simple thing to do. So they're, and I know a good number of them and have had a great time with them over the past 10 years.
That's pretty interesting. And, and yeah, I don't know. They seem like pretty just down-to-earth kind of people that, of course they're going to be under extra scrutiny because of their association with Billy Meier. Billy Meier. And one of the other things that I remember him saying just hit me now. One of his interviews, he said something about something involving the German language. A comment about that. I can't remember exactly what he was talking about. Okay, go ahead.
He said that the German language is the best language to convey the full meaning of the spiritual teaching in the case. And he said that the reason for that is that it is the only language that has all of the words that actually have pertain to the meanings of the things that are conveyed, and that English in particular is a bit bankrupt in that sense. It doesn't have enough words that really convey those meanings. There's some words in German for which there's no translation. So he said ultimately that could turn into a world language. I don't think he's saying it, just in some kind of cultural pride thing. He is very knowledgeable, obviously, in German. He also has, background. I think he speaks Greek too, because his wife is Greek. He speaks some English, more than we didn't show him really speaking much English, if any, in the film, because he didn't want to try and put his words and answers and concepts into a language that he wasn't perfectly fluent and that may limit it. So we did the best we could to translate what he said. But this is also what was echoed by the player, and they said German just happens to be the best language for these highly specific ideas to be conveyed. And, it doesn't mean that everybody has to speak it solely, but it may come a time when it becomes more of a global language in addition to any regional languages people still speak.
I mean, that's not going to make too many friends with the French or the Swedes, I would think,
or
the Russians or us.
Else,
yeah,
really.
I mean that sort of
Japanese
smacks a little bit of I don't know what the word is, but you understand where I'm going with that.
Yeah. No, sure. And again, this is just information as to what is being said in this case by these people, and it's more like if people really are neutral to this, rather than even we. I know we don't prefer the people that are studying this. We don't like it when people say, "Oh, I really believe in the Billy Meier case." Oh, I believe it. It's like, oh no, why bother with that? I don't believe in the Billy Meier case. I simply know A, the case is true. B, there's things in it I cannot prove or disprove that pertain either to the distant past, the as yet unarrived future, or scientific things that are not yet accessible to me and maybe to us. So, is the case real? Yes. Can I, prove that? I think so by virtue of everything that's been made available through research by the original investigators and others, my own efforts, pulling things together, other people's contribution. Yeah, there's only one possible answer. The guy's telling the truth. Otherwise, if Meier is hoaxing, he is beyond genius level in so many things that should be the story of a century. It's even more amazing.
Yeah, and he's a heck of a typer too. I mean, that
was insane.
Yeah,
man.
That scene just shocked me. It's like
one hand, 6
yeah,
words.
I can't even do that with two.
I didn't have any words for it. It was really impressive.
Yeah, I got to second that one too.
Yeah. I mean, and there was another thing I was going to say about the peace meditation symbol. Now, from what I heard, not too long ago in a recent publication here in America, they had talked about the peace symbol actually being a construct of a graphic designer in England in the early 60s about the anti-nuclear proliferation movement. And, obviously the traditional version of it is with a turned down or something.
Right.
And here in the symbol, obviously it's swapped around. Now, what does Billy Meier say about that?
Yes, well, he's saying, first of all, that as a symbol, the one we use as a peace symbol, not only do they say that it's a symbol of death, not peace, but that the symbol has appeared in distant times, many times. I think it's called the Cross of Peter. It's also one of the runes, R-U-N-E, a rune for death. It's a negative symbol, and he says, look, you have to understand the energy's going down here. It runs down to the earth. When you turn it, what they consider to be right side up, you see it as a tree of life with everything moving up and blossoming and the vital energy of life moving up and moving out and upwards. And I had mentioned that there's the work of a doctor named, I think it was John Diamond, who worked with testing people, kinesiologically testing them on different symbols and lines and drawings, as well as words and sounds and everything else, to see what made a person strong and what made a person weak. The peace symbol as it is right now has the kind of lines running down that, in terms of Diamond's work, probably makes people weak when they're looking at it, if you test them kinesiologically. However, the peace symbol that Meier is showing, this upward tree of life, also mimics the gesture of what's called the Madonna gesture, a mother standing with her arms outstretched, held open wide and slightly upward, which is what draws children. It's an embracing, not just even children, but it's the kind of a thing, and that anybody that opens their arms and kind of lifts them up, there's something where that's harmless. There's nothing shut off. It is that kind of a thing, and it's strengthening. So, again, that's something people can check out for themselves. They can read about the peace symbol and the peace meditation that goes along with it at my site for free. They can hear the phrase that's used with it. All this stuff is just freely available. Find out, have you come upon something that is just the biggest and most impenetrable hoax, or could it possibly be the most important story in all of human history?
Wow. That's a pretty epic way of putting it.
I don't see anything in between. This is not this guy isn't making half-hearted claims here. He's not going, well, I think somebody talked to me, but I'm not sure. saying, since I was 5 years old, I've been on board these things with these people. I've taken, as you saw in the film and on the website, he's got a couple photographs taken from inside the craft, outside the window, at 2 UFOs above the ground. It don't get any better than that.
It's pretty crazy. Why didn't he turn the camera around?
Well, here's the thing, people, and that's a question I get it almost, every week, if not every day. Someone will say, "Why no pictures inside the craft? Why no better, clear pictures of the ETs?" Because we get hung up on that kind of stuff. First of all, a picture of the inside of the craft wouldn't prove too much. People would say, because look, you've got these phenomenal photos and films, and they still attack them. And they'd say, "Oh, well, he had a set made up, or somebody was a designer." There'd be an out for that. Or then you have pictures of the ETs, and since they're human and look like us, it doesn't prove anything. And as they did in one case, people found that there were doubles for 2 of the women that he did take photos of. And the photos then got manipulated, they claimed, by some nefarious, parties. And it would look like Meier hoaxed the whole thing except for one little thing, that it turns out in a published, copyrighted, documented book that I've got and that we have available on the website in ebooks, he's warned about this years in advance of it. They talk about he wants to go and meet the American women who are like the doubles for the women named Esket and Nira, and they said, "I don't think we're going to do that." And he says, "Well, why not?" And he said to him, "Well, we have reasons. This isn't going to happen, And you just know, especially when later on when he gets accused of hoaxing the photos, you go, "Oh, no wonder they wouldn't do it." They knew he had to run into this obstacle, and they had to let him do it without, giving him a break. But it's pretty easy to show that they indeed knew about it in advance.
Well, Michael, thanks for being on the show yet again, and we, like I said, we look forward to new stuff coming from your from your website and from Billy, and we hope to have you back on soon.
It's my pleasure, and let me just say this: if anybody decides to order the film from our site under either of its titles, it's got 2 titles there, but don't worry. If you order our film, we'll send you a $25 CD with hundreds of excerpts of Meier's transcripts for free. You just have to either mention this show or put the word free in your order, and we'll do the rest.
Cool.
Preferably
cool.
the show.
Preferably the show, yeah.
You betcha.
Well, thank you so much, Michael. It's been a pleasure as always, and like I said, good luck with the future stuff, and let us know anytime you'd like to come back. We'd love to have you.
Love it. I thank you guys very much.
Thanks so much.
Pleasure.
And that was Michael Horn, the official representative for Billy Meier and theyfly.com. That's a website, www.theyfly.com.
It's always some pretty neat neat discussion we have with when Michael's on here.
Yeah, definitely. I took it easy on him this time. I just let him say his stuff. I didn't go off at all.
No, you're why
tired tonight for some reason, for one, but also
the velvet glove.
I was just kind of wanted to see where he'd go to if I just kind of kicked back, and it's he went.
The thing about the Palma volcano, I think I remember something about that actually on Nat Geo. I mean, it's been or History Channel 1. I had forgotten to talk about it when he was talking about it, but there's a major volcano over there in the Canary Islands or whatnot, right off the west coast of Africa. That thing detonates, boom, New York,
it's bad,
flooded, Boston flooded,
a lot of places on the East Coast flooded,
Connecticut flooded, Rhode Island.
Well, it might not be a bad thing for New York City. Clean it up a little bit. I'm kidding.
All right, Travis Bickle.
No, who?
Travis Bickle.
Who's Travis Bickle?
Ever seen Taxi Driver?
No.
Dead silence.
No.
Robert De Niro. Taxi Driver.
Okay, yeah.
You talking to me?
Yeah. You got me now. Yeah. Okay. Gosh, that took me.
Thanks for the glare there, Dave.
It's okay.
Give him the good glare.
Yeah,
he deserved that.
That's true. I have seen that. It's been quite a while. Okay.
But he was talking about washing the streets away, and I don't know why we went straight away to talking about Taxi Driver. That was really me.
Yeah,
actually.
it was. But anyway, we're coming up to the bottom of the hour. We're just going to have free phone Monday or something.
People are going to misinterpret that as, they're giving away free
phones. Yeah, no, we're not.
Yeah.
That means you call in.
Yeah, we're going to give away free
open lines.
hillbilly cell phones.
That's right. But we'll be back here in about 5 to 7 minutes, and you're listening to World of the Unexplained. We'll be back after this. And we're back. World of the Unexplained. I said I'd bring it back in. Man.
Oh.
Yeah, I said then you could tell your story.
Gonna go back here.
Yeah, no. Anyway, 877-722-7382, 877-SCARE-U2, or locally 336-996-1596. Trent was telling me that he has this ghost story he wants to tell. I guess something happened to him, because I haven't heard it yet. So this will be my first time listening as well as yours.
Well, just to answer some Facebook information about the podcast, we are in the process. I know we've been saying that for thousands of years, but technology has changed, so we have to change with it. And so when you get new when you get new technology, you sort of have to retool things, and that's essentially one of the problems with our podcasts right now. Is
prophecy.
Prophecy.
Yeah, you got to change things when you get prophecy.
That's it. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Go ahead.
But anyway, so that was one of the main issues that we're having. But we're working on it. Thanks for keeping us on the fire, because we need to be. And thanks again to Michael Horn, tonight's guest, with the Billy Meier story. Excellent interview. So, I wish we had some creepy music to tell this story with. That's the Doctor Who theme song, man.
Sorry, man.
Come to think of it, I just realized, that new V series they're coming out with?
Yeah.
I believe the theme song for that V series is going to be one of Muse's new songs, Uprising. It's pretty cool. It's a cool song, but it has a very vague-ish Doctor Who sort of feel to it. Sorry. Anyway, so after school, after my night classes, over here at Greensboro, I've been going with the process of trying to be a little bit more health conscious, and so I take the stairs at the library. Now, the library over there at the college, it's a very tall library. It's about 11 flights of stairs. There's 2 different stairwells, one going all the way up to the top to the roof, and then one going from starting at the 2nd floor all the way to the 10th floor. Okay. I sit there, and my workout is basically climbing those 10 flights of stairs. That's it. And trust me, when you first started, at least for me, not being very health conscious, it was pretty grueling and brutal. So, I've been doing this for a couple of weeks now. Now, the thing about the stairwell, it's enclosed. Obviously, you have the different floors of the library that it leads off from, but the thing is enclosed. So basically, you can be around the 5th floor, and you can hear people up at the 10th floor if they're out there on the stairwell, or down on the 1st floor. So you can hear people a long way off, because it's echoey and whatnot, right?
Sure.
So I was when was this? This was last week, about 9:45 at night, and I'm walking up the stairs. And before I get to the 8th floor, I'm almost at the landing where the 8th floor begins, where I can go off and get onto the 8th floor of the library. And I'm by myself. I know this because I obviously can hear people coming up or down or talking or whatever, and up to this point, I've heard no one except the sounds of my heavy breathing and my footsteps. And plain as day, I'm sitting there about 2 steps before the flight, and then I hear in my ear, as if somebody was standing right beside me, whispering into my ear, sort of a genderless voice. Couldn't tell if it was a man or a woman, or a boy or a girl. I couldn't tell age or gender or anything. And it was just very simple. It said, "Watch out." Just like that. 2 words, "Watch out."
Oh.
And, and then there was nothing. It was just dead silence past that. And, obviously I was pretty, working out and everything, but I've never heard anything like that. Especially just, imagine somebody going right to your ear and whispering it, "Watch out." And needless to say, it was pretty terrifying. And so I just basically went up to the 8th floor, flew the door open, and then walked into that floor of the library, and I was done walking that night. And then I took the elevator back down. I don't know what to make of it. It was really creepy, and I can't say that I've had a lot of paranormal experiences. I don't know, maybe people can just sort of like, well, it's because you were working out and, maybe your senses were a little bit dulled from the blood pumping and the muscles moving and stuff, but I've done this a couple of weeks now, and I've never had any kind of audio discrepancies in that tower, in that stairwell.
Sure.
I hear people coming up. I hear people open the doors. I hear people talking, and there was no sound prior to this event, and there was no sound prior to after it. I didn't stick around too long after it, but that was it. I don't know what to make of it.
You didn't proceed.
No, I said, watch out. And then
I
watched out. I just went out. And I don't know what to make of it. I mean, or even interpret it. Maybe something bad would happen if I went up all the way to the top. Maybe I would have tripped on the steps and
or maybe
hurt
not.
myself. Maybe it was one of those things where
Watch out, you're gonna make it.
Watch out, you're going to make it.
I don't know. But it's definitely, since this is World of the Unexplained, that is definitely a moment of unexplainedicity, without a doubt.
Unexplainedicity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
So, I mean, it's not much of a ghost story. It's not like I saw spirit, bloody hands, or disembodied floating apparitions, or, yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
What? It is?
Okay. So what do you make of that, Scott?
I don't know, man. Nothing really happened. I was kind of upset. Yeah.
That's it.
Yep.
So my ghost story basically was not, pleasing. It was not a good ghost story.
It was okay.
Yeah. It's okay. You have one to share with us?
Yeah, I do actually.
Dead air is a bad thing.
I know
on
it
the
is.
internet,
I know
on
it
a
is.
radio show.
Yeah,
Dead air is not one of those things you want.
I'm looking for guests. Or I'm looking for a future guest. Because I saw this thing the other night and it was really cool.
Uh-huh.
And I want to. Apparently, this was in Green Lake, Wisconsin. Is where this happened. At a place called Dartford Cemetery.
Oh man.
And it's said to be haunted by ghosts, apparitions of an Indian chief, Civil War soldiers, children who died from polio. And supposedly the idea is if you sit on the roof of a certain mausoleum, you'll be pushed off by a ghost.
Huh.
So, and they had, on the episode of A Haunting that happened this past Friday night,
Uh-huh.
I saw it, and I was just like, it was really good, and I would like to get those guys on there that went. The teenagers that were teens at the time, I don't know how old they are now, probably in their early 20s, that actually went out there and experienced some of this stuff firsthand and saw all kinds of crazy stuff and decided, well, we ain't doing this again, you know what I mean? So, but it's in Wisconsin, and they did it on Halloween night. He got on this website, and they had the guys on there, the real guys that did it, on the show, and they were calling it a legend trip. And which is, they say is a dare, which something is the seeker must do in order to prompt the supernatural occurrence, and the dare is to sit on top of a mausoleum. So, these kids were looking for something fun to do on Halloween night. Nick and his friends, so they went on this website called Unexplained Research, and they have a lot of haunted places in Wisconsin. So he goes to the Dartford Cemetery, and then Nick and his friends, John and Christian, they decide to take the dare, and they walk through the cemetery and. They climb up on the mausoleum, and after a while they see a crack, and they've never seen it before, and it scares them. And
A crack in the mausoleum.
yeah, on the top of it.
Yeah.
And then one of the boys gets pushed off, and it's pretty crazy.
Okay.
And they see all kinds of freaky stuff, kids and
That's
little
pretty-
ghost kids and stuff. Yeah,
little ghost kids.
yeah, little ghost kids.
South Park did a
That's pretty.
I mean, it's really cool.
Yeah. You know, it reminds me of that Mystery Hill here in Davidson County. In a way. Not really the same thing, but
That's the one with the car, right?
Yeah, the car, and you put baby powder on it, and you'll see handprints pushing the car up the hill or something. I've never been there. I don't even know where it is exactly in Davidson County. Do you know where it is?
In Davidson County?
Yeah, that Mystery Hill place. I think that's called Mystery Hill.
Mystery
Hill is also a tourist destination in western North Carolina. I'm not confusing it with that. This is more just with word of mouth. It's called Mystery Hill, not officially. You don't know where it is?
I don't know. I've heard lots of rumors as to where it is. There's the picture of the mausoleum, though, right there.
Well, that seems like a
Dartford Cemetery, guys.
place you don't want to
go to Unexplained Research. You can just type in Unexplained Research and Dartford Cemetery in Google. It'll probably take you there and show you. But pretty wild stuff. Here we go. I'm reading this directly from the website. Excuse me. Basically, it says an Indian chief from a tribe lived in that area, and he drowned there when he was drunk and attempting to swim across the Fox River on a dare. Alrighty. Mausoleum in the cemetery contains the bodies of several children from the same family who all died from polio. Let's see here. The last chief to rule the Green Lake area was Chief High-Knocker. His Indian name was, I'm going to pronounce this wrong, Hanage. But the white settlers referred to him as High-Knocker because of the stovepipe that he always wore. His death certificate lists his name as Dick High-Knocker and records the case of his death as an accidental drowning. There's no evidence alcohol was involved. Let's see here. Contrary to the myth, there are no children buried inside the mausoleum. It contains the remains of a man named Jackson Walker. This is the investigation. Let's see, the reputed phenomenon, apparitions of the Indian chief, apparitions of Civil War soldiers, apparitions of children who died from polio, dark shadowy figures, strange noises, orbs, the sensation of being followed or watched, and the dare is, of course, if you sit on top of this mausoleum, a ghost will push you off. Pretty wild, is it not?
Yes.
Pretty wild. I think it's kind of crazy. Yeah. Craziness.
Do you have a ghost story that happened to you, though?
Just the one that we had.
Oh, that's the only one, huh?
I only see ghosts when I'm with you, Trent.
That sounds like a really bad love song from the 80s.
I only see ghosts when I'm with you. Baby. You'll only get it here, folks. But the name of this episode, if you want to see it, you can probably find it somewhere to view live on the internet. And it is A Haunting, the show A Haunting, and the name of the episode is Legend Trippers. It's episode 39. So you might want to check that out.
Legend tripping sounds like a terrible thing to do, though. Well, like it could be a potentially very bad thing to do.
Tripping with the legends, Hendrix. Yeah,
I don't think
Joplin.
I don't think they meant that. Joplin's not a legend.
Well, she is to some people, not to me. But
not to me either.
I just throw her in there with Hendrix because it's around the same time.
Well, and she died early, like Morrison.
Like Hendrix. Morrison, there we go. Hendrix, Morrison.
And Joplin. That's the trio.
He's just a sexist. That's why he doesn't want to include
theoretically. No. It's not true at all.
He just wants men rock stars in his world.
No, that's not true. You wait a minute. Hold on now. Because about 10 years ago, you're going like, oh, well, I don't really like all those female rockers. They're not as cool.
And I still don't. I don't listen to them.
That's terrible.
That's just my choice.
Have you ever heard Drain SDH?
Yeah.
Those Swedes are really,
It's not my thing, man. I like female singers. I just don't like female rock singers. I know it sounds weird, doesn't it?
Well, so you're saying you like Celine Dion, but you don't like Drain SDH?
No, I don't like Celine Dion.
But she's a female singer.
I'm just saying. What I'm saying is that I will listen to female singers.
Are you talking about female singers like, I don't know, Dinah Shore or Nina Simone?
I'm talking
Edith
about
Piaf? Those kind of female singers?
Well, female singers in general. Yeah.
I'm still a little confused. You're not being very specific. It was rock singers, I can understand. Like, I don't like to incorporate her. Courtney Love is a rock female singer.
If you call her that.
Yeah. The girl from L7, way back in the day, was another one. The girl that's in Evanescence now,
Yeah,
she's
that's
probably
cool.
Lacuna Coil. I think there's a female singer in that band, and they're pretty awesome. And
Okay.
who else? But I mean, none of those is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Because I can't really use the Cranberries because they're not necessarily rock.
That's right. Well, yeah, you're right. No, I
You
like
know.
the Cranberries. That's cool. I'll
So
listen to
you
that.
so you like
I'll listen to
Dolores?
that, sure.
I think her name's Dolores.
I don't know what her name
or
is. But
Riordan or something.
Aretha Franklin. There we go.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's good stuff.
So the soul back in the day,
Sure.
folky female singers.
Sure.
Who else? Country female Dolly Parton.
Sure. Yeah.
Like Dolly Parton.
I like Dolly Parton.
Yeah. Crystal Gale.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've never heard anything about Crystal Gale.
You haven't really?
I think it may be a trick question. That just
No.
gave me-
No. The what is it? Don't you make my brown eyes blue? That song. Yeah.
Did she sing that song?
Yeah. Yeah.
Whitney Houston.
She's okay.
No, I don't really care for her much.
Yeah. She's okay.
Loretta Lynn.
Yeah.
Oh, definitely Loretta. Oh, Patsy Cline.
There we go. Yeah.
Yeah. But actually, come to
You
think
know,
of it,
Willie Nelson sold that song. I probably told this on the show before.
Yeah.
I have.
I believe so. But you need to tell it again.
I'll tell it again. But Willie Nelson sold the song "Crazy" to Patsy Cline for to cover their bar tab one night in this bar.
Willie
the rights
Nelson.
to it, yeah.
God bless him.
It was like $400 tab or something. They
Yeah,
had no
but
money,
still.
so they're like,
That's Willie Nelson.
Got to pay for our bar tab.
Yeah, that's
You
cool.
want this song?
Here it is.
That's right. Taking the toke off his little pipe.
Yeah.
Probably, I don't know.
Well, yeah,
rumored.
you're insinuating some things that may or may not be
Be
accountable.
true, yeah. It's rumored.
And speaking of aliens, have you seen the Fourth Kind yet, or Paranormal
I have
Activity?
not. No, I haven't seen either one. I did see A Christmas Carol with Jim Carrey in 3D.
That really has got nothing. Well, it's got ghosts in it.
It's got
Well, it's
ghosts,
not
man.
really
That's the
the
ultimate
same-
ghost story, dude.
Yeah,
The
but,
ghost of Christmas past, the ghost of Christmas present, the ghost of Christmas. There's 3 ghosts
Plus
right
you're-
there.
plus you're a
Then
Dickens
Marley,
fan.
There's 4 ghosts right there. Yeah.
Yeah,
Not to count all the ghosts that he sees when he looks out the window from when Marley first visits him and leaves.
yeah. There's a lot of ghosts.
There's
in
a
it.
lot of ghosts there. So
Is
there's
that
easily more than 30
Yeah,
ghosts.
it's that. It reminds me of that excellent Doctor Who episode. The one that you like, the new Doctor Who from the one where he met Charles Dickens.
Yeah. That was
that
really
was
good.
that
with the gaslights and
Yeah,
all that.
that thing out of all those seasons, and I'm a huge Doctor Who fan. I watched that at about 2:30 or 3 o'clock in the morning one
creepy.
night by myself, and I was going like, "Whoa, well, I shouldn't have done that."
That is very bad. Yeah.
What's it called? The Unquiet Dead, I think is the name of that
Yeah,
episode.
that was a really good episode.
That show has always
New
impressed
Doctor
me.
Who.
Quite a bit. A good deal of those episodes are really, really high quality, stellar sci-fi TV.
I agree.
But what?
It's almost time. See, where does it go?
Exactly. We're
Where
talking
does it
about
go?
stuff.
Yeah.
Huh. I was going to talk about, more UFO things.
No, not now.
Not now.
Anyway, but we're going to be podcasting again soon, hopefully.
Yeah,
Just
so
gotta
keep
get
it up.
together
Keep talking to us and we need your help.
We need your money. No, I'm kidding. We'll take your money if you'd like to give it to us. We accept donations.
We'll offer you free, genuine, authenticated WOTU vampire detectors.
That's right.
And we're not going to explain what they are because they're.
Well, people listening to the show already know.
Yeah, that's true.
I don't know. I don't know what Gomez is doing. What are you
I'm
doing,
not really
Gomez?
sure what he's doing either. Well, I'm sorry, Dee's not here. We got a.
Oh yeah, let's kill this thing then. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, so
Thanks again to Gomez, our intern radio guy, phone caller, and phone answerer. We don't have a title. I'm sorry.
I know, we'll
we
make
don't
you
have an
one.
official title. I'm sorry.
he's just the Gomez.
Yeah, we'll just call you the Gomez.
Oh well,
Is that the same guy from the Addams Family? Is it Gomez?
Yeah, it is
Gomez
Gomez.
and Morticia.
that's it? Yeah.
So there you go. That's the whole WOTU
It's a little
reference.
WOTU
You know,
reference,
you're
Gomez.
you're named after a famous character from the Addams Family. You know.
Anyway,
So, thanks again to Michael Horn tonight. Tune in next week. We got some swell stuff coming.
2012 stuff, man, craziness.
2012, just in time for that movie.
That's right.
There, I'm
Pow!
snapping my fingers.
We get him here like that. It's Jay Scott.
This is Trent Lackey. We're coming to you from Kernersville, North Carolina, a small town where we talk about big things. Thought there was more to that, Scott.
No, well, I don't know. I'm shortening it. See you next week.